and today I'm going to speak about library interfaces changing over time. Let's begin. Version upgrades can be painful, but for programmers, those are often worse than for regular users. I'm going to tell you a story about the Debian server upgrade that I took part of in 2006. I'm going to speak about library interfaces changing over time. Stream preview. Sorry about that. After upgrading the operating system version, all services were fine, except one, ProFTPD. It accepted connections, but it refused to transfer files. This FTP was the only practical way for new music to be loaded into a streaming server for the largest e-radio station on the planet. So we had to get it up. First, we tried to stop the service with an init script, but it didn't work. You know, init scripts, some of them rely on PID files that are not always there and so on. They can have bugs that can be unreliable. Therefore, we tried to kill the FTP process with a sigterm, but that didn't work either. We proceeded to kill -9, a sig kill, which amazingly didn't kill the process. The port 21 was still accepting connections. We didn't know what to do, but one of the sysadmins has remembered that there is a command which can kill every process. So, sounds like the thing that we need. It was kill 5. I didn't know the command, and the sysadmin didn't know the command either, so he invoked the command without parameters to see what the proper syntax is, because he expected like a command argument missing error. But his terminal froze, nothing really happened. Kill 5 kills all the processes in the system. It doesn't accept any arguments. Every service died, we couldn't log in anymore, there was no KVM, SSH, nothing. After all that, the only thing that remained working was the FTP server that accepted connections but refused to transfer files. We had to call the collocation and ask them to physically press the button on the server to fix it. When I think about this story, I smile, but not all version upgrade stories are funny. Non-backward compatible changes are the major issue with long-term support. Young startups don't feel it that much, but successful projects eventually have to upgrade their dependencies. Startups that take a longer time to get to the market are impacted most by this because their stack is getting old and they still have very limited resources. Hobby projects, the ones that are closest to our hearts, done in our free time, those are hit the hardest. The interface changes in the libraries eventually force the application developers to adapt their code to work with the new API. So for them, it would be best to never have any non-backward compatible changes. The thing shown on the screen is the most famous adapter in the world on board of Apollo 13. I want us to make less of those as a community. The thing is, if a library has 200 users, a non-backward compatible change will eventually force all of those users to go over the changelog and adapt their code to the new interface, assuming that they keep maintaining and supporting their software. Most of this effort is hidden from the library maintainer, though. While hundreds of engineers try to migrate their applications over to the new interface, the library developer already works on the new features and next NBC changes, non-backward compatible. Both users and maintainers face the same problem, but from different sides. Maintainers want to improve the interface, while old users would like to keep their applications running. Meanwhile, new users want a nice API, modern, but as soon as they start using it, they want stability. So they become old users instantly. They also generally want access to new features, performance, and maintainability improvements, even after they settle for an interface version. Library maintainers need to introduce the non-backward compatible changes to their API to improve them, to make it modern, to iterate. But then eventually application developers have to follow all those changes in order to receive security updates and support. Version 2.0 will have 0 users on the first day, regardless of popularity of version 1. There is no other way. Or is there? Turns out there might be a way. Actually, I think it's not that hard. I called the abstraction of the interface which solves this problem ApiVer, because it assumes that the API of the library will have different versions. Here's how it looks for the user. Now, this is what we used to do before. And this is what I started using a while ago. An obvious question is, what about namespaces? You remove namespaces. Well, it is unlikely that you really need it. But if you really have 2 file classes in different modules, you might want to change their names so that they're less confusing. Alternatively, just do this. Keep your namespaces if you really have to. The important part is this v2 thing, which gives you back your freedom. If you use ApiVer, you can move your code around as much as you want freely, because users won't mind. In fact, most of them won't even know something happened. Imagine what users would think if you would like to rearrange modules so that the structure is slightly more consistent. But then sometime later, you decide something between the old system and the current system would be even better, and then change it again. Everybody would have to fix their imports, maybe even twice. If you use ApiVer, you're free to change the internal structure without impacting the users. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Is it a lot of work? No. It is 1 line per function, class, or constant that you expose as an interface. That's all it takes. See for yourself. You just need to have 1 file that imports things from your internal structure, and you keep it in v1, v2, v3 directory in init.py. The newest version imports from the internal structure, and this is the adapter which bridges the changes between version 1 and version 2. So let me explain why. The older versions import from one above them. So version 1 imports from version 2, version 2 imports from version 3, version 3 imports from version 4, version 4 imports from the internal structure. You only need to focus on 1 adapter at a time to cover the API difference between last release and your current pull request. So maintenance of this is not really a lot of work. Usually you copy the old file that imports something to a new directory, and you're mostly done. Okay, so how about renaming a function or a class? What happens if we want to rename something? Version 3 is again 1 line. So this is, let's assume this is the newest version. You just import things from your internal structure. Version 2 imports the renamed function as the old function name. So it's 1 line. And then everyone who imports things from v2 keeps their code working, despite you changing your internal structure and renaming the function. No need to release major server version. Okay, so how about adding a mandatory argument? So in version 3, let's say we want to import something from version 4, okay, because there it is renamed. And then you can just provide the default in the wrapper, in the V2, V3 bridge here. Someone says, okay, well, maybe the style shouldn't be available in that interface of V3 because it's kind of an added thing. So users which are on version 3 might use this to use the new style parameter that is usually only available in version 4. Well, here there is no clear reason why we shouldn't allow this. But if it is forbidden, you just do this. You don't expose the parameter. You just assign the default in the call. So in version 2, we have moved the code around. In version 3, we have renamed functions. In version 4, we have added mandatory arguments. Now imagine that we would refactor portions of the code, keeping the same interface in version 4. But then we would fix an old bug. If we had different versions of the code on different branches, backporting the bug fixes over code movement, renaming, and refactoring would require more and more work the farther we go into the past. Sometimes the same bug needs to be fixed in different implementation on different branches, which is wasteful. But if you're using ApiVer, fixing of the top version is enough. And there is no need to stop support for the old versions. No need to force the folks using the old versions to adjust their code. Well, those are the good sides. There are some issues with this method. Here's the list of issues that I found. Maybe more will be found in the future. Some wrappers will be hard. So if you're doing massive changes to the interface, everyone would have to struggle a lot to adapt their code to work with the new interface. And if you are one of those people who is responsible for creating the wrapper, then massive changes will make it hard for you to provide the bridge. But that's kind of the point, because you have 200 other users, and it's better that you do it once than if they have to do it hundreds of times. But you have knowledge and understanding of your library. They don't. You know what changed. You have everything that you need to do this change. And if you ask them to do it, it is much harder for any of them. Some will just not be able to do it. Some tooling would be nice for this. This is a pretty new concept. There are no decorators, wrappers, automatic documentation. So we'll probably have to build some of these. And starting with a very wide interface can be expensive. So this is true for Semver also, not just for ApiVer, because if you expose things that are a little bit internal to your structure, then you have to support them. So what I recommend is you cut down the interface to a minimum in a major Semver release to get the pure interface of what you want to expose and keep everything else internal. Semver says precisely how you should say what is the public interface and what is private. Okay, so what now? You already know how not to use your internal module structure as a library interface. This is a new concept, but so far it seems to work pretty well. You can start using it. If you learn something, please share it with me. I'm sure it can be improved, but for that we have to start using it and we have to talk. Yeah, it could benefit from the discussion. Definitely. And let's do a short summary. This is how it works for the user. So they just append a little bit to their import. And for implementation, this is how it looks like. You just add a file which lists the all the members of public interface. And the benefits of using it is freedom to move any code around, to change the interface as you see fit without breaking it for the users. And you're not putting an upgrade wall between your new code and your existing users. Thank you. We can talk during the break, or I can answer some questions. You can catch me on Discord if you would like to discuss this further, or any other Python backend subject for that matter. Find me during the break. And
thank you.
here's my email if you want to write to me. Finally, thanks to the organizers of the conference for letting me share this. I hope it will make the world a better place, at least by a little tiny bit.
Okay, thank you. I will check if there are some questions right now. Okay, there are questions. Hi, the idea is very cool. Was it used up to this point in some public project? Can you share the results?
It was used, and the results were good. We haven't broken the interface since we have adopted this methodology. Not many users admit to using this library because it is mostly used in commercial projects, but generally this was all discovered because I was responsible both for the library and for a client, and then I was kind of feeling responsible for another client, which means I had two clients and one library. So whenever something changed in the interface of the library, I had in mind that I will have to fix it twice in two different repositories, which didn't make any sense. So I thought, okay, where those wrappers should be, and it just naturally fell into the library. If you know, this project that we have is very old, so it started in like Python 2.4. So some parts of the interface are ancient. There is no, context managers where they are appropriate. So we're kind of thinking of maybe, someday there will be a moment where we will need to migrate from Python 2 mindset to Python 3 mindset. But generally, it worked very well. None of the wrappers were hard. Most of the wrappers were moving a piece of the code from the current version to the wrapper, for example, when we were deprecating something. So we were trying to remove a function. We just move it to the wrapper so that the old users can still have it. And then we have an object which, we have a class which inherits from head and adds those two methods that we have deprecated. So, so far, for me, it's great.
Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is, and is there some ApiVer site for semver? Couldn't find an obvious result on a quick search.
Yeah, so no, it doesn't have a website yet.
Okay.
Before we build a website and we describe it fully, I kind of want to get feedback from people because I got very mixed feedback. Some people were very excited about this, and some people were like, but we will have to write the wrappers. And so the cost associated with writing the wrapper is on the developer of the library here. And some developers don't think they should be paying that cost, which is weird for me because I feel like I'm responsible for the interface. That's the entire reason I'm doing this. But I have no idea how many people feel which way. So that's why I'm presenting it. If you think it's a good idea or if you think it's a bad idea, tell me. If many people think it's a good idea, we'll write it down and we'll start promoting it more.
Okay. So next question. The question is from Gaba. So the library would be bigger and bigger over time, yes?
Yeah, so every time you release a new version of the interface, you include one more file which has one line per interface member. But this is very compressible. So technically, yes, it would get bigger over time, but it's not really a problem.
Okay, someone gave a feedback that it's a good idea and he will present this in his company. Okay, next question is, isn't the way how you manage with different version of packages the general dependency inversion paradigm rule?
Either I don't understand or the answer is no.
Okay.
Maybe we should, like the person that asked this, maybe we could meet on Discord of the conference, and then maybe we could talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Okay. I'm looking if there are more questions, but I don't see any more. So thank you for your talk. And if there are more questions, then people can ask you, as you've mentioned, on Discord.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more question. So, so we separated the different version by different namespaces.
Yes, that's the entire talk in one sentence.
Okay. Okay, so that's everything. Thank you for your talk.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.